Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're taking a look at Lagavulin 16, White Horse, 43% ABV. Dustin, one of our Patreon subscribers, sent us a nice set of samples. Some
Unbelievable.
Ardbegs, 60s Bowmore, some really nice ones. Part of it, at least what began the discussion, was this Lagavulin 16 White Horse. I believe this was an early 80s bottling, if I'm remembering it correctly. To our Patreon, Mike B, we appreciate you sending us these samples. I did share this one with Dustin because you were so generous with what you were able to give us. And we're going to get into what we think of this Lagavulin White Horse 16.
You know what I'm discovering, Mike? I like drinking with Mike's.
It's a good name.
It's a good whiskey name, and I don't even know what to describe right now. Mike, you're going to have to probably lead off. I am lost.
I tell you what, the smoke note is instantly recognizable. It's different. It's so much more creamy. It's not quite as bonfire, but it's a more oily nose as far as the smoke than I can remember.
It's incredibly oily, but it's also really citrus.
Yeah, I was going to say the peach note, which I usually have to work to get to some degree, is really predominant on this.
To me, it's so much more sour than that traditional note as well.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I kind of got that with the White Horse 12 as well.
I mean, this is, and I don't want to say like because of the oiliness, it's not a over the top sourness. The oil balances it, but it's bringing through this very sour, acidic. I guess it's a smoked peach. I mean, I'm thinking it's some crazy fruit I've never had before.
Just like with the 12, I in that video I kept saying how oily the fruits were. You're right. The oiliness goes with that acidity with like the fruits. But that's why I said it was, and I'll say it with this one, it's dense, it's concentrated, that fruit note.
I can't believe I'm smelling a 43% whiskey right now.
That too. That's the next thing you'll get at is, wow, this is oily for 43%.
I wonder if the entry proof or even the distillation proof was much lower back then off that white still.
Maybe.
Because, that's something we don't talk about enough in the whiskey world. But when you distill at a lower proof, it produces a much more flavorful whiskey at lower proof. And it tends to produce a little bit more of an oily whiskey. Obviously not as explosive in the alcohol.
Yeah, I'm trying to dive into what's different about this, rather than just kind of describe some of the notes. I mean, but there's a lot of things you would recognize in Lagavulin here. I mean, that meatiness is still there, but again, the fruits, just like with the 12, that's where it's just so different. It is fruit oil.
This is bringing back like old school, like some of the 21s and stuff you brought out with those old sherry casks. Mm-hmm. Way less sherry in here.
Way less, yeah.
I'm assuming there's sherry in here, but
I would imagine.
It's way less, but it's those old school casks. They give off that kind of slightly medicinal note that I like in these sherry casks.
But just that twinge of that bodega sherry note.
It's not quite as bubblegummy as
like
those. It's darker. It's less sweet. This is, while there is a sweetness to this, it's not a sweet whiskey.
I agree. Yeah, it's almost like Lagavulin 16, 50% meets a cigar.
There's an earthy, oily, rotten kind of fruit vegetal note here.
When you say rotten, I was going to say vegetal. And it's kind of the same thing. And I get that on Lagavulin sometimes.
I mean, again, it's those older, wiser Lagavulins in terms of age statements.
Yeah, but really, man, if you can get to the oak note, which takes a second, the oak note feels different in this one. There is just something that reminds me of old bodega sherry wood in this.
What I think I'm getting here, it's reminding me a little bit of like how Dusty Bourbon has a different oak note that I believe, and I've heard a lot of people say, comes from the fact that they were larger trees back then. So you had bigger rings.
Yeah, it feels deeper.
And so it imparts less of like the surface tension of the oak, but it creates this it's just different feel. And
it's not as bang up front, like even with the smoke down with the notes. It's not as predominant up front, but it's just deeper. It's just right behind the surface.
The smoke is a complement to this, dare I say, almost like a funk, but a beautiful funk.
It's definitely not out in front like the newer bottlings are.
Yeah, the new ones are very smoky.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like how smoky they are. But you're right, this is just a compliment. This is just a bit of soot in the background.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's oily soot.
This is, at your grandparents' house. He has an old wood burning fireplace, and you're not in that room.
Yeah.
But you're not far from that.
And I keep thinking I'm gonna get gasoline on here because it starts to go that direction, but it never gets there. Never gets there. But it keeps getting so close to that gasoline note. I wonder if this is like what an oil tar with like a sweet fruit element would do. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, it's very... Sooty is a good term, Mike. I mean, because there's a lot of soot here for sure. Wow.
Man, nice balance of just wood, peach. Ooh, here on the finish, instantly turned to ash. Oak ash right here on the end. I mean, yeah, so initial on the arrival, you get a very recognizable Lagavulin 16, nice little smoke. The initial arrival comes off a little denser, a little oilier than the normal traditional 16 does. A little more full as far as those traditional flavors. But the fruit note's very different. It's very oily peach. And then as soon as you swallow, it quickly turns into fire pit ash. Big time.
Yeah, I mean, up front, it's less smoky than today's stuff. Mm-hmm. The 43% is a little more obvious once I dived in here. It's definitely not super, super rich. It is oily, but it's thin oily, if that makes any semblance of sense.
Yeah, it's not a deep oil pit there. Just oil on the
You're right, the finish on here is very, very like smoked wood.
It feels very exotic wood burnt.
That's a good way. This almost reminds me of like maybe if you'd used a Mizunara or a Hungarian or like some kind of, crazy wood.
It turns so ashy as soon as you swallow. We like Lagavulin 12s. Remember the 2013 vintage? Remember how ashy that was throughout the whole experience?
Oh, yeah.
Now, this isn't that level, of course, but I loved how it just dropped off a cliff as soon as you swallowed like that. Because normally Lagavulin comes back and it's a smoke bomb instantly. Mm-hmm. And that ash is smoke. But, I mean, it's just far more fire gone out cold than it is what you get off of normal Lagavulin 16 today.
As you said that with the drop of water, the nose is like if I just poured ice and water right over a campfire. This is very subtle, very subdued. This is not an in-your-face whiskey at all. I've had some old Lefroy tins that were at 40%, and they were very impressively flavorful for the proof. This isn't a jump out at you over the top flavor for 43%, which I was kind of maybe hoping for. But it's a beautiful, subtle dram that I could spend days with.
It comes off more significant than 43. Maybe, again, I agree on the palate. It feels about bright as far as that is.
The nose is brighter, obviously, because I'd said earlier. But the palate, I'm not saying it doesn't come off bigger. I was expecting, that Lefroy at 40% I had was something that could have hung with 48%ers, This.
Now the fruit's kind of moving over into an orange.
Yeah, you're right.
Tobacco orange.
It has more of that traditional citrus.
Orange oil.
There's definitely some spiciness coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tobacco? Is it? It's maybe more like a pipe tobacco. It's definitely not a cigar.
Or just
cigarette.
small quantity of it. Definitely not a cigarette. Just a small quantity of it. Nice, a lot of subtlety. I probably need to get a bottle and just work my way through it one day. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it tastes like the best Lagavulin 16 you ever had.
It definitely tastes more like Lagavulin 16 as I'm drinking it than nosing. The nose was like the whole foreign thing. Yeah, Lagavulin comes back out in the mouthfeel and in the palate.
Yeah, but I tell you what, man, the difference is the oils. Not quite as shocking difference like it was in the 12, but it's there.
I'm starting to get a chocolate tobacco. Almost like I've had a few cigars that have a chocolate note to them. Just give me that chocolate cigar smoke note right now.
This would be a fun whiskey on a cold night just to sit down and have 3 or 4 grams of it.
A little bit of fudge in there. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I'm not absolutely, jaw dropped, floored by this one. Mm-hmm. But such a beautiful, subtle, well constructed whiskey. Jeff, this one is leaving me wishing it was 46, though.
I'll tell you what, just a tad bit of pencil shaving here at the end too.
We got a little peppermint now on the nose too.
A little bit of cooling mint, yeah. Anyway, good one. All right, let's get to whiskey score here.
Ooh.
A lot of things I like about it. Mouthfeel was not one of them.
No.
But in very nice, good, subtle whiskey, I'm going to give this, I'm kind of going back and forth between two numbers. I'm going to go with an 88.5 out of 100 on this. I was going between 80 and 88, and I really can't distinguish. I mean, it's Lagavulin. It's a better version of 16. There's a lot of things I really love about it. I, too, wish this one was a bit higher of an ABV. But again, those oily fruit notes is just something different, and I like the different take on the smoke. I like the old sooty smoke of Lagavulin compared to today's over-the-top campfire. But that's just me. Not that I don't enjoy both of them.
The finish on this is incredible. I can't believe the complexity and depth we're getting here with such a light, simple mouthfeel. The mouthfeel here really is, 84, 85 range. It's not bad, but it's not in anything, it's not in $100+ whiskey, which this was never intended to be. But that finish is unbelievable. So I'm actually at the same score, Mike, 88. Really, really love the finish here. Like, that finish is
Chewy oak now on the long linger.
Yeah.
Like, it's chewy. Like, you can tell it's sherry oak, too.
to me, it was like chewy, fudgy oak. Mm-hmm. And
It's a great finish.
honestly, the finish on this is so high. I was debating going higher, but the mouth feels so weak. I can't. So 88. I wish this was available every day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, if there's a little bit higher ABV, this would be a 9. If even at 45 or 46, it'd be a 90 easy.
45, 46, yeah.
Very good one. We want to say again, thanks to our Patreon, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, dude, this is...
Cheers, buddy. We
It may not get a 90+ score, but this is, in terms of whiskey exploration and like new flavors that we're not used to in
Priceless.
today's whiskey,
priceless.
it's a high score.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely appreciate it, brother. We'll get back to you here soon. All right, those are our thoughts on this Lagavulin 16 White Horse Edition. If you guys had a chance to try this one, let us know what you think. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy vintage drinking.
We'll see you then.